Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reddit League show, week 3. I'm joined today by Calamity,
Hi.
and our special guest this week is Chicago Geographer. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problem. This is the first probably global cast we've had. We have one person in each continent, essentially, Europe, Asia, and North America. So we are all at different time zones recording this video, so should make things interesting. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So let's take a look at the results for Division 1, Week 3. Calamity.
Yeah, there was some very close results this week, not only in Division 1, but throughout all of the divisions. I guess that's just something that comes with playing a world map as opposed to some of those smaller country maps. There is surprisingly weak performances by all of our top scorers so far. Raidman Mucha and Equinox both with all-round bad games, but luckily they played against each other, so Equinox still got the win in that one. And Simi had one capital error. Top performances from both Verdoc and Compilou, the two Frenchmen, after their bad start to the season, who pulled in the best and second best game of the week. So again, two best players facing off against each other, as every week apparently. Only being separated by 7 points.
Very nice. Yeah, unfortunate for Compty Blue. Still looking for his first win. Got a draw, though. Chicago, your thoughts on this week?
Yeah, so we had a lot of very, very close matches this week, especially between Wardock and Kumpbiloo, looking for their first wins and ending up with a tie there. Also, the match between myself and Kevin Kroner, only a 51-point difference there, which was very close. We both ended up with a tie there. So yeah, lots of very close games and also overall very high scores, I would say, as well.
Yeah. How did you feel about your matchup, Chicago?
Oh, I was pretty happy with my score, and I'm impressed with Kevin's score there as well. So yeah, that turned out to be a very good game.
Indeed. So let's see what those results mean for the Division 1 table. Geography challenges. Schulde and Equinox both sitting on 3 wins in a row, 9 points, creating a bit of a gap at the top of the table, with the rest of the competitors only with 1 win for a couple of them, in 4th, 5th, and 6th for Raidman, Mucha, CoStar, and Maguron. And the bottom half still looking for that first elusive win. But as Chicago pointed out, lots of draws in this division. Yeah. So Calamity, how is the table shaping up?
Yeah, GC, Schluti, and Equinox are starting to run away with it a bit. They've already got 4 points of an advantage over 4th place. So the people behind them will have to make sure to close that gap quickly before it gets too big. The interesting part about the table in Division 1 this week is that there has been absolutely no movement. Not a single one of the players has changed position from last week. Unfortunately for Compilou and Verdoc, their great performances this week weren't enough to get them away from last and second last place. Same is actually true for Chicago and Kevin Kroner, who also both had a decent score, but still sit in 7th and 8th, still looking for their first win.
Yeah, it made it very easy for me to make the update this week when nobody moved, so I didn't have to do a lot of photo editing. Chicago, what are your thoughts on this table so far?
Yeah, so it's interesting how, as you said, GC, Schluti, and Equinox are sort of sitting at the top there, and then the rest of us all still have quite close scores in terms of total points. So it'll be interesting to see just which of us are going to move up in the rankings later on.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at the fixtures for week 4 to see if anybody can possibly move themselves out of that bottom 4 places. In Kyrgyzstan is our map for week 4, another country-specific map. Calamity, any interesting matchups coming up?
Yeah, I'd say most of the matchups are actually interesting, but not a single one that's really standing out to me. The most interesting one table-wise is probably going to be Raidman Mucha versus Schluti. Raidman will want to quickly forget about his world map performance and get back to the outstanding performances he's shown us so far on the national maps. And Schludi somehow finds himself in second place in the table with decent but not great performances on any of the maps so far. Like he's finished 9th, 6th, and 6th on the free seeds. So if the matchups had been slightly different, it wouldn't have been inconceivable to see Schludi at the bottom of the table with 0 points after 3 games either. But that's not how it went, so there we go. My personal prediction for this week is Raidman Mucha, Magyaron, Equinox, Geography Challenges, and Simi. But it'll be interesting to see if anyone can upset, in quotation marks.
Yeah, Comte Blue has been putting up some pretty good scores, but he's up against a really tough opponent in CoStar Simi this week. So very unlucky if he'll have to take another loss, but who knows? Anything can happen in Kyrgyzstan. Chicago, do you fancy your chances this week?
I would say it's definitely going to be a pretty close match, I would hope. I'm going to need to do a lot of practice. I know GC is a very good player, so I definitely have to prepare myself for this match. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you could get your first win against the number 1 seed in the table, that would be something for sure. Yeah, so we'll be looking forward to that. We should also get videos from both of you. So look on the YouTube channel for that possibly coming up in the future as well. So with that, let us jump into the results of Division 2, Week 3. Chicago, your take on these matchups from last week?
Yeah, so we had a lot of very close games here as well. The game that I was most surprised with was RC versus Aistaru, with Aistaru pulling out a win there against RC, which I was very impressed with. We also had Benika 11 scoring very, very well there, getting the top score for the division, which was impressive. They're a newcomer to the Reddit League as well, so it's quite nice to see.
Yeah, those newcomers, Benika, Mr. Blue, and Yellow Skarmory, kind of a little bit all scattered throughout the table, but Mr. Blue and Benika putting up some decent numbers and decent scores as the newcomers. Calamity.
Yeah, it was a bit of an unfortunate week for Giovanni, who had a game that could have comfortably put him in second or first place in the seed before he decided to go with Wisconsin instead of Salt Spring Island near Vancouver. Seppo used that mistake, putting in a solid performance, as he did on the World Maps last season in Division 3, where he finished second, and fourth, grabbing his first 3 points. Salt Spring Island was always going to be a hard location that would split the results of the division in 2, but I was actually kind of surprised that only 4 of the 12 people got the right location in Cambodia, since it was one of the easier rounds of the seed, in my opinion.
Interesting indeed. So let's see what that means for the table in Division 2. As you can see, Tescotac still at the top of the table with Mr. Blue GG. And RC still sitting in 4th despite that loss. And Benika did move up a little bit. Yeah, actually, Yellow Skarmory, sorry, man, I forgot exactly where you were in the table, but you're right up there with them. So the 3 newcomers to the league doing very well. But Slovak Goalie and Radox, unfortunately, still sitting at the bottom without a single win. Radox, though, did pick up a bonus point. So he's sitting on 1 point despite not having a win. So Chicago, anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, so as you pointed out, the newcomers are doing very well in the division. And also Tesgotak, who had been demoted from division, my apologies, that's... Actually, no, it was RC who was demoted from Division 1, doing quite well. And Tescotac sitting up there at the top of the standings right now.
Yeah, Tescotac was about middle of the pack in Division 2 last season, so definitely improving from last season with his scores. Calamity.
Yeah, one funny thing about this table, Radu, who lost his game against Ice Taro, actually moved up 2 places in the standing past Skarmory and Tall Impala, while Ice Taro himself stayed in 8th place. The most interesting part about the table, though, purely statistically, is to me that it's the exact same in terms of points as the Division 3 table, with the exception of 7th and 8th place, who have 1 point more and 1 point less, respectively. Keep an eye out on that.
Yeah. So after 3 weeks, we're starting to see a little bit of separation from the pack, from our top players. But especially in the middle of the tables, it's still pretty much anybody's game. So those playoff promotion and relegation spots are still very much up for grabs after 3 weeks. But let's see who they will be facing in week 4. For Division 2. So any matchups you are looking forward to seeing, Chicago?
Yeah, so I'd say my most excited match, the match I'm most excited for would be RC versus L49. Two very good players, and we'll be looking for which one of them will come out on top there. And also looking for Radux and Slovak goalie, as you said, to pick up their first wins of the season, for sure.
Yeah, very possible against their opponents this week. But Slovak goalie up against the leader, so maybe a little bit harder of a challenge for him. What do you think, Calamity?
Yeah, there's actually not a single matchup in here that isn't interesting to me in one way or another. Mr. Blue will want to keep his winning run going, while Giovanni will want to bounce back after that unfortunate loss this week. Benica and Skarmory, two newcomers sitting right next to each other on the table. It's a long season, but even early on, matches like that against your direct competitors for promotion can decide a lot. Then, of course, Radox, who needs to finally pick up his first win. And he's got good chances against Seppo, who, as we know, isn't the strongest on national maps if we go by the first 2 weeks of competition. But Kyrgyzstan writes its own rules. It's a map that's completely unlike any of the others we've played so far in the Reddit League. But nevertheless, it's now or never for Radox, and if he doesn't want to spend the whole rest of the season fighting against relegation. Then we get to... Go on.
Yeah, he narrowly escaped relegation last season, and he's right amongst the pack of the newly promoted from Division 3 this season. So it looks like he might have to fight for his survival again. What were you going to say, Calamity?
Then we get to Ice Taro versus Blockchain Prenup, who both got their first win of the week and will want to continue riding on that wave of success. And then, you already talked about Tall Impala versus Radu, so I'll skip that quickly. But we got first versus last here in Teskotak versus Slovak goalie. I kind of feel sorry for Slovak goalie at this point. He's been newly promoted to Division 2, and so far he's had to face 2nd, 5th, and 6th in the table so far. And after playing against the current leader Teskotak this week, he'll get 4th and 3rd in Skarmory and Rado in the next 2 weeks. Definitely will get easier for him after that point, but it might be too late unless he picks up a couple of points until then. You kind of have to hope his morale doesn't drop.
Yeah, that fixture list not being kind to him at all for the newcomer to Division 2. So let's move on to Division 3 now. Take a look at those results from week 3. Calamity, can you give us the breakdown?
Yeah, it was pretty much exactly as close as Division 1, just 900 points roughly lower on average. Despite that, funnily, Wolf Tracker and Freckles, the top two, were the only two players who could have drawn had they played against each other. Wakelog was 119 points behind Freckles, I was 134 behind Wakelog, Ijubek was 176 behind Fios, Hugo Alvaro was 139 behind Ijubek, and Porksteaks was 239 behind M the Baseman. What caused these close results was a seed with 3 very easy location. No one in the top 4 dropped more than 81 points on any of those 3. And then 2 locations with next to no information in the north of Thailand. The outcome of the games wasn't all that surprising. Theos winning against Hugo Alvaro is the only real upset of the week in my opinion. But special mention goes to Wakelok, who, not really because his win itself was surprising, but because he got a great score after a pretty disappointing start of the season.
Nice indeed. Yeah, Chicago, any surprises for you?
Really, the thing I noticed the most here was that everybody scored very well overall, and that made for some quite close matchups, which is the main thing I saw in these scores here. But yeah, overall, everyone did quite well, and I'm very impressed.
Yes, indeed. So let's take a look at the Division 3 table, how they all stand. As Calamity mentioned earlier, the point totals look very similar to Division 2. Guelo Wizard and Wolf Tracker sitting at the top of the division. Calamity, you're a close third right behind them with 7 points. one thing to notice is we got some first wins from Dem Freckles, though, Pork Steaks, and Theos, I believe. So they got their first points of the season. Oh, Pork Steaks didn't get a win.
Yeah, it was Wakelock instead of Pork Steaks.
Wakelock. I wrote the wrong name down. I'm sorry. Picked up their first wins, so they'll move them up a bit of the table. Yeah, and M, the Spaceman, though, unfortunately, along with Pork Steaks, still looking for that first win, and that score differential is getting quite dark for them, already minus 20,000 plus in the hole for that. Yeah, Calamity, how do you feel about this table?
Yeah, there's not much to say for me here. Everything's still relatively close together. The only thing worth mentioning, in my opinion, is the quite clear split in the score differential. If you look at it, you've got 4 players who've got quite a high positive score differential in the top 4. Then you've got 3 who are sitting somewhat around 0 with M the Basement, iJubek, and Redirect. And then 5 players who are pretty far into the negatives already.
Yeah, Dem Freckles sitting a little bit better than his score differential would maybe indicate, given the fact that he has picked up a few of those bonus points to move him up the table a few places. Chicago, your thoughts on the table?
Yeah, so what I've seen here in this table is that sort of at the top of the division, lots of very close scores in terms of points there. So it'll be an interesting race between our top players here. And then, as you said, lots of very, very low score differences there at the bottom. So they'll be looking to change that around as we progress into the later weeks.
Yeah, Calamity, how do you think you are sitting? You're in third. Is that kind of what you expected from yourself, or are you a bit surprised even?
I mean, I knew I could do better than last season, where I finished having to play the relegation playoff match. But yeah, I've been practicing a bit more, and it's been showing results. I've played some of the more difficult games already. I've played against Wolf Tracker now, against Freckles. Yeah. So yeah, I hope I can at least stay in the top 4 throughout the rest of the season.
All right. Well, we'll see if you can carry that position into week number 4 as we take a look at those fixtures for this coming week. Yeah, so Calamity, you're facing off against iJubek this week. Think you can pull out another win?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really know anything so far about iJubek. The results he's put in the previous 3 weeks were all sort of average. None particularly amazing, none particularly bad. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he can do in Kyrgyzstan. Apart from that, interesting matchups. Redirect will face off against Wolf Tracker, and he'll get his second week in a row where he's going to face off against a person that's gotten relegated from Division 2 alongside him last season. And Wakelock and Pork Steaks, as well as M the Basement and Hu Alvaro, also matchups that could be very close or could go either way with big swings, but I couldn't predict them either way.
Nice. Chicago, anything you're interested in looking at week 4?
Yeah, I would say we have all around quite solid matchups here. Pork Steaks and MD Spaceman looking for their first wins there. But Wakalok and Dem Freckles, though, very, very good players. So it'll be interesting to see if they'll be able to pull it off there.
Yeah, I still don't think we've had many American derbies at all, given how many players there are in this division. They just don't seem to always play up against each other too often, which is odd, but I guess we'll get it all towards the back end of the season with that. But let's move on to Division 4A with the results from last week in week 3. Chicago, your thoughts?
Yes, so what I notice here is that Max, who is at the top of the division now, has been doing very, very well so far, pulling out an excellent win there over Anna NZ. And then also we have overall very solid scores across the division as well, so that was quite impressive.
Calamity, anything particularly interesting from week 3?
Nitnarok has apparently awakened from his slumber, putting in the second highest score of the week. Yeah, everything else went pretty much the way I predicted it last week. You put in a pretty good score, Zotomo, even though you couldn't quite beat Patriots, but you got that extra point for finishing 4th.
Yes, I did. My pinpointing skills letting me down a little bit towards the end, just not quite fast enough. But I did, as you can see, we take a look at that table, pick up that bonus point, which bumps me just above Anna and Z01 into sixth place. Otherwise, I guess my score differential would have still given me the position, but now I'm at least sitting a little nicer than before. Yeah, as Chicago pointed out, Mex FI sitting at the top with 9 points, the sole leader with 3 wins. Patriots a close second with 8 points, but he does have 1 draw against Small Bows. So that pretty much the only thing that separated the two. And yeah, Nitnarok, as Calamity pointed out, having woken from his slumber, will jump up to 3rd place in the table. But anything else stand out to you here, Chicago?
Well, as you pointed out, we see that Max and Patriots are starting to pull ahead in the rankings here. So it seems like sort of top half, bottom half split might be starting to form here, but it's still a little bit early to say for sure.
How about you, Calamity?
Yeah, I agree with that. It might get to a point where Max versus Patriots is going to end up being the duel to decide who gets that direct promotion spot.
Yeah, looks like it. And yeah, kind of pretty tight in that middle, that playoff challenge with Group B. It's going to be very close. Lots of players with similar scores and points. But let's see if week 4 has anything interesting for us. I know I'm playing against Lenovo Sucks, so I'm sorry, buddy, but I don't think you'll be picking up your first win. At least I hope not. I don't want to be the one to give it to you, but we'll see. It's curious, Dan. Anything can happen, I guess. Chicago, any other matchups look interesting?
Yeah, so the Patriots versus Max matchup there should be quite interesting. The top players in the division right now. And then in addition to that, we've also got, as you pointed out, Lenovo versus Zotomo. Will they be able to pull out their first win there?
Calamity.
Yeah, you're going to be pretty embarrassed if you lose after those big words, but we'll see. Yeah, as Chicago said, Max versus Patriots is probably, it could already be the deciding factor, the direct duel between the two, depending on if they drop any points later on in the season, but they might not. And in that case, whoever wins this has a really good chance of getting that one spot. Nitnarok versus Neusel will also be quite interesting to see whether Nitnarok can now put in a decent performance on a country map as well, or if that was just him being more comfortable on a world map.
Yeah, well, Nitnarok is a player who was relegated from Division 3 last season, so he'll be hoping to pick up that win against Noeso to boost his rankings a bit and increase his chances of getting promoted back into Division 3. Doesn't want to spend another season in Division 4, I would say. But let us take a look at the results then for Division 4B, the other half of Division 4 in week 3. So Calamity, your thoughts on these results?
Yeah, no real surprises here either. The average score is quite low, especially if you compare it to the Division 4A, where I think it was 2 or 3 people got over 23,000 points. So having not a single one of these players get over 22,000 could maybe be bad for the playoffs afterwards for promotion. Bad sign in that regard. But other than that, yeah. H-Town Steven was probably the only match up going into this week where I didn't have a clear favorite. And that went Steven's way by about 2,000 points. So good job on him.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah, so it seems like, as Calamity said, not too many very high scores this time, but no surprises really in terms of who came out on top in the matchups. So yeah, that's basically what I noticed here.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, maybe a little bit nice for me, considering the fact that if I make the playoffs, I'll have a little bit, maybe a nicer chance of getting promoted, facing a little bit weaker side in Division 4B, but you never know. Let's see how that Division 4B table is shaping up. We have a very clear leader, at least in terms of points so far, only 3 weeks in. By close 24/7, sitting at 9 points, again undefeated. But Deep Thought and Ed both at his heels with only 1 loss apiece and a very close score differential, only about 400 points separating those two in second and third. But kind of the middle of the table, Steven will be looking to do a little bit better. He's only 1 point off, but he is a relegated player from Division 3. So he'll be looking to boost his chances of reaching that playoff. But GRH and that One World Girl sitting at the bottom of the table. One World Girl still looking to pick up her first win after 3 weeks. So Calamity, how's this group shaping up?
Yeah, Steven's overtaken Papagato and H-Town, who he played against this week. Other than that, similarly to Division 1, nothing really happened. You can already see kind of the split between 4th and 5th, 3 points between the two. Yeah. I think I've said it before on one of the other divisions. I can't quite remember which one, but again, it'll be interesting here to see whether that gap is going to grow bigger or whether the people down the table are going to close it a bit.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah, so what I've noticed here is that the 3 Americans in this division are all sitting at the bottom 3 spots, so I know I'll be rooting for them to start moving back up the table as we move forward into the later weeks. But yeah, seems to be a sort of split here again between the top half and bottom half starting to form.
Yeah, probably the most division we see in any of the divisions between the top half and the bottom half in terms of separation, at least. So definitely should make some interesting matchups going into week 4. I think we're really going to start seeing these leagues, these divisions take shape for at least Division 4. This is about halfway through the season with only 8 players. Week 4 is the midpoint. We're still a little bit a ways from that for the other divisions, but we're getting towards that midpoint of the season. So we can probably start making some predictions about the playoffs and relegation battles that will be taking place in about a month or 2 from there. But let's take a closer look. We've mentioned it already about the map for week 4. We're going to be in...
Not to interrupt you here, but you might want to show the fixtures for next week for Division 4B.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Before we talk about that.
That is true. Let me pull that up. Next week, fixtures. There we go. Thank you for Calamity, keeping me honest. This is the weekend. These are our matchups for week 4 in Division 4B. Anything of interest, Calamity?
No. I'm kidding. GRH 77 versus Papagato is probably the interesting match to see which of the two is going to start closing that gap towards the top half of the table. If the person who's going to lose that game, it could be a draw, but if one of them loses, that's probably his chances, if he had any, for a direct promotion spot over. And close against H-Town could be quite an interesting matchup as well. H-Town has put in, as far as I remember, pretty decent scores so far and has gotten a bit unlucky with his matchups. So we'll see if he can pull off a good game against Closed.
Indeed. Chicago.
Yeah, so there are many matches here that are between sort of the higher ranked players and the lower ranked players right now. So that's kind of interesting. Additionally, that One Weird Girl will have a pretty tough time trying to catch their first win there against Ed. So that'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Indeed. Yeah, I think what's really interesting for me is that Deep Thought and Steven will be facing each other this week. They're both the relegated players from Division 3 last season. So it might be a bit of a decider to see who has a chance at getting promoted back up from this division. So now let's take a look at the map they will be facing off in week 4, Kyrgyzstan. It is a lesser played map given the nature of the country, not one of the most popular. The average score is only about 10,753 points. Very rough given the nature of the country, very mountainous and not lots of good signs or clues to use. This map is by Topotic, our winner from season 1, Reddit League, who's not with us this season, but it has over 1,000 hand-picked locations to make it very, very interesting. So yeah, Calamity, what are you looking forward to in this map?
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan is an interesting map. I've had a lot of fun practicing it. To anyone who's thinking like, why are the average scores so low? Just, try it. You'll see. It's not got a lot of coverage, quite similarly to Northern Macedonia, but the difference to that is that Kyrgyzstan is quite diverse in terms of landscape. A lot of mountainous areas, a lot of very flat areas, and also quite a few areas that are completely different from everything else. So, in my opinion, probably the map so far this season that benefits you the most if you practice it a lot.
Indeed. Yeah, definitely a map that if you put in some hours, you can get familiar with the few locations and the limited street view options in the country. Chicago, what do you think about Kyrgyzstan? Do you fancy your chances in this country?
Well, it's definitely going to take a lot of practice to get get a hand on what's exactly going on with Kyrgyzstan. As is mentioned, it's going to be a very practice-heavy map. Again, a relatively small country, so pinpointing will come into play here as well. And then Cyrillic reading ability will also be very important here for some people who may not have as good of a grasp on it as some of the top players, I would say.
Yeah, so those few signs will be important. So every little bit of information will be of very high importance indeed. Yeah, so that'll do it for us for this week. Hope you all enjoyed the show. Sorry about the little mix-up in the next week's matchups for Division 4B, but we got it all sorted out in the end. Thank you, Chicago, for joining us. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully we can have you back again in the future, closer to those playoff runs where you can get your opinions on those. Yeah, so that'll do it for us. If you like the show, please hit that like and subscribe button in YouTube. It lets us know that you enjoy the content and lets YouTube know that they should share it with more people so they can enjoy it as well. And we'll see you all this week in Kyrgyzstan. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.